He had nothing when people first noticed him. Not talent, not money, not even confidence. If you had seen him walking through the narrow streets of his small town, you would never have guessed that one day his name would be spoken on stages, written in books, and shared across millions of screens. At that time, he was just another invisible face in a crowded world, someone people passed by without a second glance. His name was Daniel, but nobody called him anything important back then. To most people, he was that quiet boy from the broken house. His father had left when he was young, and his mother worked long hours cleaning other people's homes just to keep food on the table. Daniel learned early that life does not hand out fairness, and dreams are a luxury for people who already have comfort. Still, deep inside him, there was a small voice that refused to disappear. It whispered at night, when everything was silent, telling him he was meant for something more. But dreams without direction often turn into frustration. Daniel failed in school many times. Teachers called him average. Classmates laughed when he said he wanted to do something big in life. Even he started to believe that maybe they were right. Maybe life really was only for those who were born lucky. There were nights when he would stare at the ceiling, thinking about giving up on everything. Not because he wanted to die, but because he was tired of trying and failing again and again. One day, everything changed, not because life suddenly became easy, but because he hit a point where there was nothing left to lose. He had applied for a small job at a local shop and was rejected even there. That night, he sat outside his house, watching the street lights flicker, and something inside him snapped quietly. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. He realized something simple but powerful. If he kept living the same way, nothing would ever change. Waiting was not a strategy. Hopping without action was not a plan. If life was going to change, he had to change first. The next morning, Daniel woke up earlier than everyone else in the house. He didn't tell anyone what he was planning. He just started walking to the library in the next town. It was a small place with old books and quiet corners, but to him it felt like stepping into another world. He started reading anything he could find, biographies of successful people, books about communication, psychology, business, and even basic self-improvement guides. At first it was difficult. His mind would wander. Some words didn't even make sense to him, but he refused to stop. He made a rule for himself: even if I don't understand everything, I will not quit. Every day he read for hours. Slowly, things started to change. Not outside, but inside. His thinking became sharper. His confidence grew, not because life was treating him better, but because he was learning how life actually works. He started noticing patterns. Successful people were not always the smartest or the strongest. They were the ones who refused to stop when things got hard. That realization hit him deeply. For the first time, he understood that maybe he wasn't behind in life, maybe he was just untrained. Daniel began practicing small habits. He wrote down his goals, even if they seemed unrealistic. He practiced speaking in front of a mirror even when he felt foolish. He started waking up early, not because it was easy, but because discipline felt like the only bridge between his current life and the life he wanted. But progress is never a straight line. There were days he wanted to quit again, days when nothing seemed to be working, days when he looked at others and felt behind. On those days, he reminded himself of one thing: he was not competing with them. He was competing with the version of himself who used to give up. Months passed, then years. Daniel started sharing what he learned online. At first, only a few people watched, sometimes just 3 or 4 views on a video, but he didn't stop. He remembered the empty library, the silent nights, the rejection from the shop. He had already lived the worst version of quitting, so he kept going. Slowly, his content started to reach more people. His honesty connected with those who felt lost, just like he once was. People didn't just see a speaker, they saw someone who had lived the struggle. His words were not perfect, but they were real. And realness is something people feel, even through a screen. As his audience grew, so did his responsibility. He realized that his story was not just about him anymore. It was about everyone who felt stuck, everyone who believed they were not good enough, everyone who thought success was only for others. He began speaking about discipline, patience, consistency, and self-belief, not as theories, but as survival tools. Years later, Daniel stood on a stage in front of thousands of people. Bright lights filled the room. Cameras were everywhere. The same boy who once sat outside a broken house now stood as someone people came to listen to. But what moved him the most was not the applause. It was the silence before he spoke, that moment when everyone waited to hear what he had to say. He looked at the crowd and said something simple. "I am not special. I just refused to quit when quitting felt easier." And that was the truth. Because success is not built in moments of motivation. It is built in moments when you have every reason to stop, and you choose not to. It is built when nobody is watching, when results are not visible, when doubt is louder than hope. Daniel's story was never about becoming famous. It was about becoming consistent. It was about turning pain into discipline and discipline into progress. It was about proving that your starting point does not decide your final destination. Even after achieving success, he never forgot where he came from. He still visited his old town. He still walked past the same streets where people once ignored him. But now, those same streets reminded him that greatness does not come from where you are born. It comes from what you decide to become. And if there is one lesson his journey leaves behind, it is this. You may feel stuck, you may feel behind, and you may feel like nothing is working right now. But as long as you are still trying, your story is not finished. Because ordinary people become extraordinary not by chance, but by choice. One decision, one habit, one day at a time. And sometimes, all it takes to change your life is refusing to give up one more time than you did yesterday.